in the hurling year. Adrian Ronan remembers when Galway and Kilkenny last met in the final back in 1993. And Michael Foley tips his hat to some of the greats who never walked up the steps of the Hogan in September. We're joined in the studio by former Galway manager John McIntyre, a rebel who knows what it takes to beat Kilkenny in a final.
Sean McGrath trying to get in through the defence here, shorten the grip on the stick and he put it over the bar. That's a second point now for the Glen Rovers man.
And a man who played a key role the last time that happened.
As Henry Shefflin plays it in here towards TJ Reid, this could be a rapid response. Oh, what a stop by Brendan Cummins.
Yes, a warm welcome to Brendan, Seanie and John, and of course to you at home. Now it's the week all hurling fans have been waiting for, and if you're fortunate enough to get your hands on a ticket, then you are the lucky one. Next Sunday will mark Kilkenny's 7th consecutive All-Ireland final appearance. Galway are back in the final for the first time since 2005 and are hoping that the Leinster final day a couple of months back can be repeated. We're going to talk about all aspects of the game shortly. But first, Brendan, you've played in the last 3 All-Ireland hurling finals. What's it like on the Thursday night? What would you be doing the Thursday night before an All-Ireland final?
Yeah, it's a bit weird, I suppose. As much as I'd love Championship Matters, I mightn't be watching it because as a player, I suppose, you want to get into your routine pre-Championship games. You get into your bubble and really other people's opinions don't make a major amount of difference to you. And if something negative came in on your mind, then it play on you for a couple of days. So the build-up is fairly hectic, certainly the last 3 years in Tip. You have more jerseys around the dressing room, you have more people talking to you on the street. So you do have to be very mentally strong to build up to these big games.
What's your routine? Because I know that you're a bit of a superstitious kind of a guy, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like my routine, the build-up would be cinema, obviously, of a Friday night, and then on the Saturday, then I'd go in and do the shopping and all this kind of thing. Like, you know, be as normal as I can. And then the Saturday night, obviously, you get to bed early. The day of the match, then obviously you try to make sure you keep everything as normal as possible. I think GA players are all superstitious. You try to do the things you did when you played well the last time, and from there then you hope on the day of the match wearing the United jersey that it'll all work out all right, you know.
It still has worked over the years for your Manchester United jersey, hasn't it?
So far so good, I think.
Seanie, what about 1999? What was it like on a Thursday night in Cork before the All-Ireland final?
Well, I suppose that whole year for us, Marty, was a magical year. I mean, we had a fantastic manager, a fella that we idolise, I suppose, Jimmy Barry Murphy, and you know, we'd come from nowhere, I suppose. You know, Clare were the team to beat. We beat them in that Munster final. So the Thursday night, you know, we were very calm and relaxed, to be honest, for me anyway, personally, because we were so young. You know, the average age of the team was probably 22 or 23, and I suppose at that age, the nerves aren't, I suppose, as big as they would be later on in your career. So for me on the Thursday, I mean, I was a touch player, so I was probably out the back pucking the ball off the wall because for me it was all about touch, and I was worried maybe come to the game that my touch might be out, so bang, bang, bang off the wall. But I don't remember being particularly nervous going up to the game. If anything, completely, really, really looking forward to it.
And you don't have a thing about jerseys, do you?
I have a thing about magpies.
Have you really?
1 for solid, 2 for joy.
John McIntyre, it must be hard for you because you've been the manager of this Galway team for the last 3 years. So is it hard for you to look forward to the All-Ireland final and not be on the sideline?
Look, Marty, I wouldn't be human if I didn't regret not being still involved, but there will be no non-Galway person more thrilled than me if Galway win their first in 24 years on Sunday. I have an emotional attachment still to all those Galway players. I couldn't fault them for their commitment and their effort and their loyalty and their honesty in the 3 years that I worked with them. And I'm just so thrilled that they are in the All-Ireland final. They're a very talented team, and I just hope they do themselves justice.
Any regrets?
Well, I suppose, without revisiting my time in charge, because it's all about Sunday and the here and now, we were desperately unlucky in 2 All-Ireland quarter-finals. We possibly threw it away the first year against Waterford and Thurles, and then we had Tipperary in big trouble the year they won the All-Ireland. We're 2 points up coming down into the home stretch. Ollie Canning got an untimely injury. I think Owen Kelly might have pulled a little bit hard on him, and it kind of disrupted our momentum a little bit. And it finished badly for us against Waterford last year, but that's all in the past, Marty. And teams tend not to win games coming down the tracks, focusing on what happened last year or the year before. This is a new challenge for Galway, and they've been outstanding so far this year in the championship.
Now, what about the future? Tipperary job is available. I mean, you're a great Tipperary man, I know, and you're very proud of the place. Would you be interested in the job?
Marty, your contract must be up for renegotiation. You're asking awful tough questions tonight already. Look, all I'll say to you is that if I hear anything that I think you should know, I won't disappoint you.
You'll hear it first in Championship Matters. Thank you, John. OK, well, we'll be back talking about the All-Ireland final later. But before we do that, Michael Foley from the Sunday Times is thinking about the hurlers who, down through the years, enthralled us with the skills of the game, but who never won an All-Ireland medal.
Step back for a minute from all the hype of the All-Ireland final. Leave aside Galway and Kilkenny just for a moment and forget Henry and Joe and all the other drama that's going to unfold here next weekend. Spare a thought for those great hurlers who thrilled us through the years but never got to walk up those steps or stand in this place in September. The ones that could have been kings.
Platoons of great players from Limerick, Clare and Waterford, Antrim, Dublin, Wexford and Galway must find this time of year hard.
It's one of those unfortunate things that before any All-Ireland medal winner is blessed with the ability to hurl, he must first be blessed with being born in the right place. If Kilkenny win on Sunday, Henry Shefflin will win his 9th All-Ireland medal on the field of play, eclipsing the record held by Christy Ring and John Doyle. Imagine if Shefflin had been born a few miles south of Ballyhale in Waterford, or to the east in Wexford. How many All-Ireland medals would he have won by now? And how different would Waterford or Wexford stories be? One of these will always be the easiest way to measure our greatest hurlers, but medals have never told the whole story.
Think of someone like Kieran Carey with Limerick. Winning an All-Ireland medal would have been a fitting tribute to a great player, but not winning one doesn't make him any less of a player in our memory.
In weeks like this, we should remember the moments as much as the medals.
When we think of Carey, we immediately recall him galloping the length of the pitch in the 1996 Munster Championship against Clare to score the winning point. We think of the day that Waterford beat Limerick in Thurles in the 2003 Munster Championship, when the Waterford coach Justin McCarthy likened Paul Flynn's skills to those of Christy Ring. We think of Michael McFetridge's goals for Antrim in the 1989 All-Ireland semi-final against Offaly. Or there's the majesty of Sean Stack from Clare, or Tony Brown in Waterford, and plenty of others. Take the All-Stars. Of the 630 awards handed out, only 73 of the players honoured have never won an All-Ireland medal.
That says something about the stock we place in an All-Ireland medal and the measure of a hurler. But there's always more to the measure of a man than the amount of silver in his pocket.
Absolutely right, Michael. More to a man than medals in his pocket. Who for you, John, for instance, was a great hurler that didn't win an All-Ireland medal?
Well, I remember back in my time in the 80s, Limerick, for instance, I used to have a lot of time for Paddy Kelly, Ollie O'Connor, and, you know, Mike Hoolan was a little bit later than that. And Gary Kirby was there as well, and there was a Jimmy Carroll playing midfield for Limerick. And Limerick are one of the counties that a lot of their players that were good enough to win an All-Ireland, maybe they just hadn't the look, maybe the team wasn't good enough. Of course, a lot of Galway players as well, like Joe Rabbit, Ollie Canning, and of course, more lately then you have all the Waterford guys, and people automatically think of Tony Brown and Ken McGrath and Paul Flynn, and, you know, even Sean Cullen before that as well. But the one Waterford guy that I would feel sorry for most of all, and he's still hurling, is John Mullane, because I have huge admiration for him. And, you know, day in, day out, he performs at a consistently high level, even on days when Waterford are in big trouble. And, you know, but look, not everybody can win. And it just makes you really appreciate the achievements of this Kilkenny team over the last decade.
Absolutely. Well, we did put the question out on Twitter and Facebook during the week, and we got hundreds of suggestions. People like Brown, Carey and Flynn that Michael referred to in his piece featured heavily. But just to give you an idea, some of the others mentioned included Tommy Quaid of Limerick, Ken McGrath of Waterford and Ollie Canning of Galway. From your perspective, Brendan, who would you pick of the great hurlers that didn't win an All-Ireland medal?
Guys that I'd have started playing with first in tip. I think hurling is cyclical. They say there about the superpowers of hurling, I suppose, and Kilkenny would have been down for a long while. God knows we can't remember now the last time they didn't win an All-Ireland. But, you know, I mean, when I came on the panel first, Rémi Ryan is the first guy who comes to my head. Wing back, outstanding hurler. Great in 95, 96, 97, the Munster final then didn't go so well for him. Didn't make the panel then for to tug out on the day of the All-Ireland final in 97, you know, even though we'd lost it that day.
Yeah.
But a fantastic hurler, very dedicated, and, you know, and like I say there in the piece, it isn't really all about the medals, while it goes on the history books and all that, but I think if you can leave your mark on the game, especially a young player like me, that even now I still talk about Rémi Ryan as being somebody I'd hold up to as being one of the greats in hurling, doesn't have an All-Ireland medal, you know.
What about you, Seanie?
Yeah, I think Brendan's point anyway, just to go back into it, is very valid. I mean, obviously, you know, you're measured on to an extent in what you have won, but I think it has to be said that guys like the guys that were shown the VT there that haven't won all of the medals will always be categorised as brilliant hurlers. And for me, I suppose, like Waterford were the one team, if I never was from Cork, I'd love to have played in the Waterford team because they played with such abandon. And you were almost left to play at your own devices, which would have suited me. But like I remember Flynn in '92 down the park in the minor final, and it was just incredible what he did. I don't know, he get 2 or 3-16 or something, or 2 or 3-6. And then I kind of kept an eye on him as he came on the scene first. His first senior game for Waterford was against Kerry, and I think he got something similar.
Yeah.
You know, so he was just a fantastic player, great character as well, but such a brilliant hurler. All those Waterford hurlers, the Browns and the Ken McGrath. But as a forward, I always had Paul Finn up there as good as any of them. Shefflin's, the Owen Kellys. He was just an awesome player, and it is an unfortunate thing that he didn't get an All-Ireland medal.
Okay, let's talk specifically about the build-up to the All-Ireland hurling final. Brian Cody this week has been speaking out in the run-up about the referee Barry Kelly, that he's hoping he's going to be refereed in a balanced way and that what happened between Tipperary and Kilkenny will not have an impact. Do you think Brian Cody is very cute here by putting pressure on Barry Kelly?
Yeah, I think he is. I think a manager's job on the week for Northern Ireland is take the attention off his players, you know, and give them time, you know. I had a great manager look at, whether it be the Alex Fergusons, the Mourinhos of this world, you know, they always say something that detracts the media's attention away from the players. I think this time in talking about Barry Kelly, threw in then as well a bit about Tip, you know, and they were physical and it's a man's game and all this kind of thing. I think Barry Kelly is a very, very experienced referee. He'll have great officials around him on the day, you know. So, I mean, once that ball is thrown in, I don't think any guy's going to take a back step.
No.
And Barry Kelly is well experienced to hold it on. And any time any team has beaten Kilkenny, it's all been about the ball, right? It'll be physical, it'll be this and that, you know, and there might be a bit of handbags, you say, at the start. And you have to do that because Kilkenny are so mentally strong. You have to show when you hit the pitch, look, I'm not taking a step back today. Now, the ref will understand that, you know, and there won't be any major wild strokes, I think, because at the end of the day, when that ball is flying around, the guys have more things to be worried about, you know.
But I don't think Brian's main motivation, Brendan, is taking the attention off his players. I honestly believe that he doesn't want a trigger-happy, whistle-happy referee on Sunday. The tougher this game is against Galway, the better it suits Kilkenny. We all know their players live on the edge. That's the environment that suits them most. And, you know, but on account of the fallout from the All-Ireland semi-final between Tip and Kilkenny, I would imagine that Barry Kelly will be getting some sort of guidance from Croke Park saying, look, we want this game to flow and we want the capacity crowd to be entertained, but we don't want disorderly conduct and skirmishes, physical skirmishes and dirty hurling breaking out all over the field. You know, so it's a bit of a balancing act for Barry Kelly. But Brian Cody didn't say what he said for no reason. He has an agenda, and he wants this game almost to be lawless because it will suit Kilkenny better.
Now, you've walked the line beside him in big matches. I mean, does Brian Cody like to impress his views on the referees during a match?
We're all guilty of that. Brian Cody's no different to any other manager. If you feel a referee has made a bad call against your team, your natural instinct is to let in a shout at the referee, go to the linesman, etc., etc. But I do remember back when I was Offaly manager in 2006, and Offaly had the temerity to be only a point behind Kilkenny in the Leinster semi-final. I remember Damien Murray scoring a goal from 21 yards free just before half-time. I think the half-time score was 14 points to 110, and the perception was that Offaly were getting a lot of frees. I remember Brian Cody and Ned Quinn going to Michael Wadding at half-time and basically read him the riot act. Cut a long story short, Offaly didn't get too many frees in the second half.
But maybe he was right.
Well, look, his job is there to influence the things that can help Kilkenny to win, and he's only doing what he should be doing.
Absolutely. OK, well, we'll talk about the game itself in detail in a few minutes. But right now, we're going to turn our attention to when Kilkenny and Galway last met in an All-Ireland final 19 years ago. Adrian Ronan looks back on a day when everything clicked for him.
That Kilkenny team from 89 to 95, we got 2 National Leagues, 3 Leinster finals, 3 All-Ireland finals appearances and 1-2. So we had a very successful 6 or 7 years with that team, you know. While we might have been favourites coming into it, Galway had a super team, namely Joe Cooney, Peter Finnerty. Anthony Cunningham, the present Galway manager, was actually a sub that day. I'm not too sure what other hurlers do, but I know there'll be many in our father said during the parade, and obviously you're deep in thought and deep in concentration, but you're asking for any divine help you can get at that stage.
And straight away a tangle at midfield.
Both teams would have liked to have a great start because it settles you into an All-Ireland final and settles you into your own game and winning your own ball.
Adrian Ronan, DJ's gone on his way inside, nobody's followed it.
We did settle down and we went up maybe 1-5, 1-6, 1-7, and then Galway came back into the game. You needed to perform to your ability or else you'd be taken off. So the minute I saw PJ Delaney going in with the ball, I knew that I was going to follow up. Richard Burke saved the ball and luckily it came back into my path. So I pulled on it and it ended up in the net. And it was one of those days when I wanted the ball every time and I couldn't get enough of the ball. There was many a day I wished the ball didn't come near me. But on this particular day, this was the day that, you know, it just worked out for me.
A point to go with the goal that he scored 3 minutes ago.
That particular day we had the wind in the second half and the ball tends then players bunch a lot more, and as forwards then obviously forwards like space, so the game ended up in the forwards being very bunched and obviously then became more physical and more intense and we didn't get the room we wanted. We had 3 forwards maybe under 5'10", myself, PJ Delaney and DJ wouldn't have been renowned to be big strong men.
Driven over the bar by PJ Delaney. The wind very definitely supporting the Cats in the second half. Again, a good ball played inside there. Rabbit trying to get at the end of it to trouble the fullback. Joe Rabbit angling for the shot. And they're level. That's Liam Burke making a great save. Was Michael Welsh.
That save was crucial on the day because if Galway had to get that goal, I think they might have moved on from there. It actually turned the game around for us.
Down towards Adrian Ronan. Paul Cooney trying to get it out. This is John Parr. John Parr, 45 metres out, and that's a lovely score. A first point by John Parr.
Second goal, I remember because I lost this tooth here over it. It was one of the few balls I think came down our way in the second half, and luckily again I got on the ball and I got to hit it in. It deceived the Galway full back line, luckily enough, and PJ, who was on fire that day, PJ Delaney scored 1-4 and his first All-Ireland. It was a super performance from PJ.
PJ Delaney gets the goal.
Sure, it's mayhem then after winning an All-Ireland.
It's all over. Kilkenny retain the title.
There's great support, great neighbours are on the field to you straight away, and you know it's a huge moment and you know you've fulfilled a childhood dream, and the elation that goes along with that then, and obviously afterwards, the enjoyment you get afterwards, it's huge. Someone jokingly, I know the person jokingly said to Eddie on the way up, look, get us a holiday when you're at it.
Bill has promised me with the help of the GA that we'll be getting a trip to Florida later on in the year.
Obviously the GA officials at the time didn't like it, and Eddie took the brunt of it afterwards by getting suspended maybe somewhere along the way afterwards. Strangely enough, we did get the holiday and Eddie came home after 3 days. He didn't like the sun.
To be fair, Eddie O'Connor did get suspended, but it had nothing to do with his speech. Seanie, the teams have met, as we know, only too well in the Leinster final. So who has the psychological advantage going into this All-Ireland final, Kilkenny or Galway?
I don't think there's any psychological advantage, to be honest, Marty. I mean, Kilkenny have been there, done that, so they know exactly how to prepare. Okay, Galway mightn't have that experience, but I think they've got a really good manager. You know, I saw him up close this year on the line myself. I think he conducts himself very, very well on the line. And I thought what he did after our game was a bit telling as well. You know, there was an awful lot of euphoria, a lot of energy coming from the crowd after our game. Galway people stayed in the ground for a good bit after. But Anthony Cunningham brought the players into a huddle, and you can only imagine what he was saying to them. Forget about today. It's out of the system. Let's get focused on the All-Ireland final. So I don't think Kilkenny or Galway have a psychological advantage. I think both managers will have them prepared really, really well. just to go back very quickly to what Cody maybe said about the referee thing, again, I don't think Anthony Cunningham will take any notes of that. I don't think it'll come into the Galway dressing room. I think he'll have his team 100% tuned in, and I think he'll have them, ready for the test that's at hand. So, and on that basis, I'm going to find it very hard to call it, but I couldn't say there's a psychological advantage sway towards any particular team.
Well, hold on to that decision for a moment. John, the criticism that has been levelled at this present Galway hurling team in the past is that there were no leaders, but surely that criticism has been answered, or has it been answered?
Well, as I was saying earlier, Marty, we can only judge, really, this year's All-Ireland final on the form over the past few months. And what happened last year or 5 years ago is really of no relevance to this Galway team. They've done everything that has been asked of them. And going back to the Leinster final, there was this widespread feeling, even in Galway, God, there's a danger here of them being hammered. And they rose to the occasion in magnificent fashion. They hurled Kilkenny off the park. There was nothing fluke about it. It wasn't as though they got a late goal in injury time to win the game. They won it from the front. They squeezed the life out of Kilkenny. They had them on the retreat from the moment the ball was thrown in. And for any team to lead that Kilkenny team, no matter what Kilkenny's attitude was like on the day, they were possibly caught off guard. To be 16 points in front of them at one stage of the first half is a tribute to the quality, the sustained quality of Galway's hurling and their tactical approach on the day.
And how will Kilkenny stop that if they employ the same plan?
I think what Kilkenny are going to try to do is to hit Galway as early as they can. Kilkenny will obviously try to use their experience, get the ball in quickly. I think Galway or Kilkenny's problem the last Leinster final was maybe they took Galway for granted, I don't know, but they carried the ball an awful lot more in their half-back line. The Galway swarming forward line then got around them in 3s and 4s, turnover, spread away then, and they bet him for pace on the way back in. I think this time too, Mike Fennelly around the middle of the field is going to add a big presence in there. He's an outlet for Tommy Walsh, little hand pass. He's 6'3", he's built like a tank, and you can take 2 or 3 fellas out of the game, and he's still big enough to get his arms over guys to get this hand pass away. That's the difficulty we would have had with Mike Fennelly over the years. You can take the tackle in hand as best you can, but if he gets over you and gives the hand pass, the play opens up then. So
having played against them so many times, lost and won, how do you beat Kilkenny?
I think the key thing is you don't turn over the ball against them. Prior to tonight, I looked at the last 4 years of when we played Kilkenny, and the overall is that Kilkenny turned the ball over against Tippy 85 times, and we turned it over. We got the ball off Kilkenny 48 times. So that shows you the work rate. And 65% of the times we lost the ball was inside our own half of the field. So the Kilkenny forward line put you under serious pressure. And the model for that Galway used actually against Kilkenny, we did it ourselves in 2010. You stop the Galway half-back line by swarming, and it takes great bravery. You're pushing everybody into that area of the field. That middle third is the key battleground. And you need to have serious bravery and trust in the guys around you that if Tommy Walsh sticks up his head, it's curtains for the full back. So you need to get in around him quickly.
And it might sound a little bit simple, but I mean, when you go back to the Leinster final, tactics aside and whatever, on the day Kilkenny the form of particular individuals wasn't that good. And it improved immeasurably as the season went on. And when it got to the Tipperary game, Tommy Walsh and Shefflin, these fellas were right back, TJ Reid right back on top form, So, I mean, the turnovers and all that is really interesting. And, an awful lot of fellas have said to me in the last couple of weeks, he's a master tactician. Anthony Cunningham, and he got it bang on against Kilkenny in the Leinster final. But for me, it was as simple as Kilkenny players just not on form. And I think they've got that form back in the last couple of weeks.
But was it Galway putting them under so much pressure, I wonder? I watched the game last night, again, the first half. Like Kilkenny players, but I said the trump card is going to be Mike Fennelly in this to take him out of jail when they're under a bit of pressure. But Galway that day were just inspired. Like there was no Tommy Welch cut 2 line balls into Joe Kenny's hand the second half. Just punch drunk, was really what it was.
But he wasn't under pressure there, was he, Brendan? Like
he was under mental stress. Mental stress. You know yourself, when you're pushed to the edge as a player, that's where you want to, then you have him at breaking point. Now it's very unusual to see it happen when it's this Kilkenny team, but I think Galway will take great hope from that look guys, and they couldn't be saying, look, put him under pressure, let's see what happens. And that's why I say that the bravery part will come into it.
That's the thing, Brendan. I mean, in the build-up to the game, most hurling neutrals and the bookmakers, everybody's tipping Kilkenny and tipping Kilkenny to win well. But as Brendan has already said, Galway should draw confidence and self-belief what they did in the Leinster final. It wasn't players wearing blue and gold jerseys or green jerseys or red jerseys, Seanie, with all due respect, that led Kilkenny by 16 points at one stage. It was men in maroon and white jerseys. And Kilkenny were rattled from the moment the ball was thrown in. And that, I think, is the secret to trying to beat Kilkenny, is you to be dictating the terms of engagement. If Galway stand back on Sunday, Marty, and wait to see what Kilkenny are going to throw at them on Sunday, they're in serious trouble.
In a word, because we're running out of time, John, Kilkenny or Galway? One
of my abiding memories from the Leinster final, very briefly, is that the Kilkenny players, the way they looked at